The 0-2 pitch, swing and a miss, struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Phixated Podcast. We are brought to you by the Birdies and Beer podcast platform. You can find all of our podcasts here on YouTube if you're watching this introduction, or anywhere that meets your podcast needs. I am Mike Gasolina, the host of the Phixated Podcast, and I am joined this evening by this handsome teddy bear of a human being, Chris Regz. Did I do okay?
You did great. First, if nobody's watching if anybody's just listening to this, the smile that I just had on my face for those 20 seconds, I'm not sure if it'll be beat in another one of these videos. I'm just not sure.
Oh, I'm going to change it up every time now.
So
we're just going to change it up every week.
The criteria, was finally met. The Azzy intro is here, and great job, buddy. I loved it.
Thanks, man.
Really
How's your
good.
week going?
It's going pretty good, Just had a little 7-year-old travel baseball practice tonight.
Love that.
What else?
How they doing? How's the team shaping up?
I had to kind of get serious with them tonight because we have our first tournament, and our first games are in like a month, and we've just been doing indoor practices, obviously. So we're getting ready to finally get outside, and I had to kind of. Obviously, it's not the season, so I kind of have been letting them slide, letting them goof off a little, just trying to have fun during the winter workouts. But I kind of told them today, I was like, that changes. It's changing right from now until the end of the season. Like, it's time to get serious and stop messing around. And they looked at me like, why is he talking to us like this?
They're not locked out. They need to lock in.
Yeah, they got to show up and get their shit together. It's really what they got to do. So I had to get a little stern with them tonight, but they'll be all right. The kids are coming along. The biggest thing is they're getting old enough to like hold the bats. Like the bats weigh more than they do when they start. Like my son was 6 when we started this, and we're playing against 8-year-olds, like 8.5-year-olds. So half the time, like they swing the bat, and the bat like pulls them practically to first base, every time they swing it because it's so heavy and they're not used to it. So all the kids are kind of growing into themselves. So it'll be good to see what happens. We'll keep everyone updated on the podcast.
We're gonna need updates because I don't know if we're gonna have baseball updates. So we're gonna need the 7-year-old travel ball updates.
I will. I'll keep everyone updated.
Do they wear caged helmets still?
No, just they all have like the face guard, like the Reese Hoskins.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's good.
So almost all of them have it. They're not required.
They all look
but
like Bryce Harper.
Yeah, but almost all of them have it. Yeah.
I mean, basically wherever you go now, like if you go to Dick's and shop for batting helmets, almost all the helmets have the face guards.
I mean, I know my son wanted it just to be like Bryce Harper, so that was the whole reason he wanted one.
That's awesome. I love that. Hopefully he gets to watch Bryce Harper play baseball this year.
Been keeping our fingers crossed.
We're going to get to that in a little bit.
We are.
We're going to get to that in a little bit because this week's a pretty cool week, Regz. There's a lot of news to talk about in this week. Football is back in the headlines with the combine. We're going to touch a little bit on that from the Eagle perspective. And obviously the huge news that came down on Monday with baseball continuing the lockout and sort of, adding to the stress of the baseball fan, right? And in Philly, we got a new star in town. So a lot to digest, a lot to dissect here tonight.
Yeah.
And
I'll also apologize for our missed week. That's on me. Caught one of those fun little 48-hour coughing bugs, and I was just not in a good place for people to listen to my voice. I would have been like leaning away from the microphone. I would have been muting every 10 seconds. It was just not in a good place to do a podcast. So I apologize for our first missed week of the year, but I didn't say I could.
I think it's okay.
Yeah, I can't beat disease. So, you have to give me that.
I think people know life happens, stuff happens. We've kept true and honest to what we've promised this year. And 1 week's not We still kind of did one, like, you know what I mean? Like we
It was
still
very
kind of did
close.
one.
Yeah,
So
we did. We
yeah,
extended that
so
last week into the.
we
Yeah,
extended the previous
right.
week, and look, it gives us a lot to talk about tonight. So
that's right.
we're gonna jump in because we are basically a month and a half from the draft, which is crazy, and free agency's right around the corner too. So we're gonna have to. I think next week we're gonna focus on some NFL free agency talk. Excuse me. But with the combine, I always love this week. I don't do it anymore because I just don't know when I'd sit down to watch it at this point. But I used to, before I got married, DVR the combine and watch it back at the advice of my cousin Mike, who lives in Florida. He does the same thing, and then like after the draft, he like saves all of the recordings and goes back and watches like the guys that they drafted.
Yeah.
So he's a Steeler fan, so he goes back and watches all the dudes that the Steelers draft. You know, after the draft is over. So I was doing that for quite some time. I don't do it anymore. But I do follow the combine pretty closely. I think it's a pretty cool week. I mean, I don't know. There's some people that are like, why am I watching dudes run in, you know, no pads? It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's not gonna be a true testament. But just watching the pure athleticism of these guys is insane. So
Yeah.
I just curious your like thoughts on the combine. Have you ever really like watched it? Do you read the numbers? Do you know anything in terms of the combine outside of like, I know it's there?
I mean, I catch the stuff on Twitter just because I follow, you know, the NFL and, you know, a couple other teams and people.
Sure.
I've never been into it. I think because let's be honest, outside of baseball, my sports watching time has gotten very low. So like
Sure.
I don't watch college basketball until March Madness anymore, right?
Okay. Yeah.
I catch football, you know, when I can because the Eagles aren't on a lot down here in Maryland, as we've
Right.
discussed. So like the peripheral things outside of spring training baseball, and really, again, the only reason I can watch that is because my kids want to, and they won't take over the remote to turn on Nick Jr. or whatever they want to watch, or Disney Plus, you know, whatever it might be that day. So I can at least get away with putting a baseball game on and know that they won't want to change the channel. If I'm putting the NFL Combine on, someone's changing the channel real fast. So Dad doesn't get, you know, a lot of time for some of the more peripheral things.
Right.
And I think in general, I don't think I've ever taken that much stock into it. I think maybe when I was younger and maybe didn't know as much about football and how teams work and things like that. I think as you get older and as you're a fan of something, you know, you learn what's important and you learn, you know, what teams focus on or what, you know, players turn out to be. And you're right. This is a place for them to showcase just their pure athleticism. But again, with very little time and not putting so much stock into it, I can't say I pay too much attention to it.
Yeah, no, I definitely, I'm pretty much the same at this point. Like there are certain things I'll key in on positions that I know the Eagles are interested in. When I know it's that day for the position, I'm definitely searching NFL Combine on Twitter later and watching videos. And just some fun little anecdotes from what we've experienced so far. You know, last year Nick Sirianni took a lot of criticism for like playing rock paper scissors with the some of the players at the combine, which as we got to know Sirianni, it's not really a surprise. But did you hear what he brought this year?
I didn't until you started talking about it before we started recording. So no, I didn't. Again, I didn't. I think I like this one better than rock paper scissors. That's for sure.
Yeah, he brought like a mini basketball hoop, and he's like having free throw competitions with the players when they get to know him. And they asked him about it on I don't know what show it was. He was doing like a Radio Row type of thing. And you know, a couple of the guys asked him like, what's with it? And he said, look, it's a way to gauge their you know, their competitive nature. It's a way to gauge their toughness, their character, but ultimately it loosens them up. Like we don't walk them right in, slam the table, and be like, "Tell me about this thing that you did in seventh grade."
Right.
He's like, you know, let him laugh a little bit. We get to know the real guy after we do this, and he's like, and I show him that I can beat him as a free throw shooter. A couple of the guys talked about it. I guess they had Sam Howell, the quarterback from North Carolina. He was like, it was kind of weird. The Eagles had me shoot free throws. So some do like. For me, like I would assume Sirianni's probably like, all right, he thought it was weird. He wasn't into it. He's not the guy for what I'm trying to build culture wise.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, I'm sure Howie will draft him in the teens in April because I said that out loud. But I don't know, just kind of we're just used to that now. I think with Sirianni, he's just like a goofy dude, and that fits that persona pretty well.
Yeah.
They are, Regz, and I'm interested in your thoughts on this because we've talked a little bit about the wide receiver position and how I feel like it calls for a veteran, and doesn't mean that a veteran still isn't on the table, but they talk to a bunch of wide receivers, which I'm sure they're going to do with all positions. Like they're going to get to know some guys. I think you'll know a couple of these names. Trey Burks, the Arkansas wide receiver, who's like stud.
Yeah.
I mean that dude, he's kind of like the Swiss Army knife type of guy because he plays all different positions on offense. So a little bit of Debo in him in that regard. So I can definitely see them looking at him if he's available because he doesn't fit just the wide receiver piece. Then they talked to Drake London. You probably recognize that name from he torched Notre Dame.
Yeah.
This year. I mean, they could not stop him in the first half. It was insane. He just torched them. And a name that I found really interesting, smaller school, Sky Moore from Western Michigan, had a really good year this year. 95 receptions for 1,200 yards, for about 1,300 yards. Didn't really stand out against like a team like Michigan, only went 2 for 22, but like the next week against Pitt, he went 11 for 124. So one of those small school dudes who puts up big numbers. Be curious to kind of see, what I didn't get to look at his combine numbers yet, but when I do, I'll be curious to kind of check it out. But I know they talked to him and he loved the free throw competition. He thought it was great. So wide receiver is definitely a place that they're, at least sniffing around. I did see Kevin Austin from Notre Dame ran a 4.3 today, so I'm sure he opened some eyes. But what are your thoughts? Are you cool if they draft a wide receiver like one of these dudes early? These guys are first round picks, from what I'm seeing. Are you hoping that they don't use one of those picks there?
No, I don't want them to use one there. I think there's enough guys who you can probably go get to come in and can, be ready to play and, know how to come into a team and work with, the guys that are already there. I don't think it's worth another first round draft pick. I think there's too many other places to use that kind of pick.
And again, some of what they do in April is going to come off of the slopes of what they do in free agency.
Sure.
So, once we see what free agency looks like, I think we'll be able to look and see what, the draft is going to look like for them.
Yeah.
The last 2 years, they've gone wide receiver in the first round. And I mean, 1 year didn't quite go so well. And this year looks like it's going to be really good.
Yeah.
I think they have to consider there's a veteran wide receiver I'd take a look at who's still on the younger side if you're trying to go young, and that's DJ Shark, and we'll talk about that when we do the free agency show. But if they're really stuck on building a young receiving core, then look in free agency to see if you can find a guy who fits that mold and maybe draft on day 3. But I don't know that you really need to focus any picks on day 1 when you have so many needs defensively.
Yeah.
So I agree with you on that one. That being said, if they take Trey Burks, I'm going to talk myself into it. So let's just get it out of the way now.
Well, it'll be an interesting sort of character test, right? We saw Rager not do well when a new stud came in, right? I don't think Devontae would feel that way because I think he's proven
he's the big dog.
He's proven to himself, and this team in this city, like who he is, unlike Jalen, who did not. So I don't think it would happen, but it would be an interesting, year over year sort of look back on how our number one sort of, handled that.
Yeah, he's an alpha. So
Yeah.
I don't see that being an issue. I agree with you.
Yeah.
But I would welcome like the opportunity to watch him be the alpha in that situation for
Yeah.
sure. All right, couple of takeaways from the press conference that Howie and Nick Sirianni had yesterday. So one of the things, and we're just gonna kind of go agree or disagree with these. They're saying they're committed to Jalen Hurts. They're gonna give him, the opportunity to be the guy. We continue to hear in the media, both local and national, that they are hanging out on the peripheral of both Deshaun Watson and Russell Wilson. Those ties have not gone away since the last snap in that Tampa Bay game. So agree or disagree, or let's do believe or do not believe the Eagles when they say that they are committed to Jalen Hurts.
I believe they're committed to him for next year.
Yeah.
I think this is a year by year thing with Jalen. I think, like we talked about last year, we didn't expect playoffs or a winning record or anything like that. We just wanted progression. We wanted, tangible steps being taken in the right direction. I think this year is the same. I think this team has too many holes in other places to try and be considered even though they made the playoffs, I don't think they're a contender for the playoffs this year just because, I keep wanting to see him and Devontae and, everybody just make steps in the right direction.
So I cautiously do not believe this.
Okay.
I know what they said. And I know that they put their necks out there, and I know what it could mean for them in the locker room if they go and trade for a Deshaun Watson or Russell Wilson. Here's where I think this could go the other direction. And look, I want Jalen Hurts to be here next year. I want the picks to be used for the right stuff right now. There's too many, like you said, too many holes to assume that Russell Wilson's going to put him over the top or Deshaun Watson's going to put him over the top. But if it comes down to it and the right deal is there where not a lot of assets have to go and they still feel like they can build a winner with bringing in one of those guys and not giving up too many assets, how he's going to do it. He wants to be that guy. He wants to be that dude. And the other piece to that is, Philadelphia it's a what have you done for me lately city. And the Sixers go and make this huge splash at the deadline. If the lockout were to end and the Phillies go and sign 3 or 4 dudes in their headlines, we're always going to talk about the Eagles. That's always going to be the talk. But Howie cannot help himself in those moments. So I'm being cautious there. I just don't believe. I think if you ask me right now, Jalen Hurts will be the starting quarterback. But I can totally see a world, Regz, where nothing they've said matters. Howie doesn't care. He's gonna, if the guy is there that he wants and that makes sense for him, he's gonna do it.
Yeah.
So, all right, Jason Kelce. They talked a lot about him and the hope for him to be back. They didn't lean one way or the other, but believe or do not believe, Jason Kelce will be an Eagle. When we start the season in August.
Slightly do not believe.
Okay.
More so because I just kind of want him to just be happy. I just want him to not be, feel pressured or, think that he has to just because for whatever reason. I mean, again, if he comes back because he wants to, then awesome. I'm going to lean towards do not think he will be there.
Okay. And I'm heavy that he's going to be back.
Okay.
I don't see Jason Kelce walking away from football after the slaughtering that they took against the Bucs. I see him walking away with a loss that's respectable after a season that's respectable. And I mean, we've talked about it. He's going to be in Canton. There's no doubt about that. But I think he's going to be back, and I don't think those kegs that Sirianni sent will hurt either.
Yeah,
so
probably not.
I'm leaning heavily toward Jason Kelce's going to give them another year. And again, they need to know that soon because And it sounds very much to me like that's going to be the case. But I don't know. I'm pretty confident there. All right. They talked about pass rush being a big focus for them this offseason, both in free agency and the draft. Believe or do not believe?
Believe, because it has to.
Yeah.
I have to believe that.
Yeah. There's no. I mean, you talked about. I mean, from week one of this year, you were heavy into that. I'm right there with you. I think they probably sign one or two guys, and they draft one of those first picks is going to be an edge. It is absolutely going to be an edge. I have no doubt in my mind it's going to be an edge.
Yeah.
All right, and the last one, Howie mentioned that he's going to lean heavily on his coaching staff during the draft. Believe or yeah, okay.
I mean, you kind of just have to go with track record at this point, right? It's like, well, believe it when I see it is really where we're at with this.
Yeah.
Howie, that's great. You can say that, but again, I'm sure you've said that in the past too, and it's never come to fruition. So believe it when I see it is my answer.
You know, I think one of my most memorable draft moments, I forget who they took. I'll have to go back and watch it. I think it was 2 years ago, but they took someone, and the one dude in the room will not give Howie a high five in the video. I cannot remember what player they took. The dude clearly wanted somebody else, and they went with whoever Howie, wanted. I cannot believe Howie is gonna take that. I mean, He'll take input, but I think ultimately he and Jeffrey Lurie make those decisions, and they need to leave it to the guys like Nick Sirianni. And I still go back to, like, they hired Sirianni because he'll play a little bit of puppet to their puppet master. And, we know that Jalen Hurts was a Jeffrey Lurie pick, and, you can't run. I mean, that's the way they do it in Texas and Dallas. And, until recently, they've had much better drafts as of the last 3 or 4 years. But now last year, the Eagles had one of their better drafts in recent memory. So if he went that route with Sirianni last year and Gannon, I hope they go that route again, because last year was a strong draft. We saw some really good things from the guys they took in last year's draft. So okay, cool. I think football kind of coming in hot right now with the combine and draft talk, and clearly we have free agency coming around the corner here, is important, because this is the time we'd be gearing up. We'd be watching spring training games, and teams' rosters would be pretty much set at this point. Maybe a couple of names would still be out there because they're waiting for the money to come their way. But man, we took a kick to the area this week, man. I mean, we got punched in the face.
I didn't like it.
Monday.
I didn't like it.
No, I mean, we went to bed texting each other on Sunday night, like saying this looks good. It feels right. Like they're heading the right direction. But man, they pulled the wool over our eyes. That was never even real, was it?
Yeah, no, certainly doesn't seem like it.
It just feels like, it feels like baseball was us in college. We, knew that we had a paper due from the first day of class on January 20th. And we, on May 1st, we're all looking at each other in the house like, you start that paper yet? And no one did. And we're all, scavenging everywhere for resources and trying to finish this paper, when the professor at the end of like every class is like, all right, remember your paper is creeping up on you. 10 weeks, 8 weeks, 6 weeks. And that's what, Major League Baseball looked like on Sunday night, pushing it back a little bit. But then the real twist happened. Like, they were giving hope. And then they come to the table on Monday afternoon with their final offer with stuff that they'd never talked about and nothing that looked like it looked the night before, just to place that blame back on the players.
Right.
Like, what are they trying to pull, man?
I don't know. It was like that combined with Manfred and his statement and demeanor and like that statement is such a loaded like just crap. It's just
Which
so
one? Because there were so many.
like the official one that went on Twitter like right after it happened.
Yeah.
It's just like so. And I think I even tweeted this from the Phixated account. I think I put like, this is such a sham.
Yeah.
Or like a thinly veiled way to try and say, well, we did everything we could. They're the ones who just won't accept anything. You know,
Right.
we did everything we could. We had our
Mhm.
fans' best interest in mind, right? And we tried as hard as we could. And it's just, the players just wouldn't do it. And it was such a piece of crap. And just like, it's such a thinly veiled like way to try and, get in front of all this backlash that it was just like embarrassing.
Yeah, it's some fake ass BS, man. Like it's really frustrating, and I think a couple of things that sort of have jumped out, and we've talked about what the arguments are over, and where one side lies and where the other side lies, but I think what's clear to me is that April doesn't mean a whole lot to the owners. Like they're willing to give away April because it's cold weather in a lot of cities and attendance isn't great because school's still in session. So they're not losing a ton of money through April. One thing that I did find interesting is that if they don't meet like a certain criteria of games, they do lose money from their regional TV contracts, which is like, that's a big portion of where they get their money from. So they're gonna have to be careful with that. And I think the players, and I'm curious your take on this. I hope the players hang tight, Regs. Like, I hope they call their bluff. And look, I want baseball as much as the next guy, but I want the players to win this fight. Like, I do. I'm rooting for the players. I'm standing on their side at this point. I've come that direction since kind of standing in the middle and pointing the finger at both sides. I've now dropped the finger from the player side as I've, smartened up to what's really going on here. But I think, I want the players to hang on tight and see if the owners will cave, because I think for so long they've pushed the players around and the players have taken it. But like, you see Mike Trout come out. A guy who doesn't say a whole lot, but when he speaks, people listen. But he made a statement yesterday saying, like, we're not doing this for us. We're doing this for the next generation of ball players. And that, to me, like, we've needed to see that from him. I don't need to see it from stupid Brandon Nimmo. Like, I don't need to see it from that idiot. I'm going to find a way to fit Brandon Nimmo in every show, by the way. But I don't need Brandon Nimmo trotting around finding, Starbucks for Max Scherzer every day. What I need is to see a guy like Mike Trout step up and say, this is wrong. Like, this is wrong and it needs to be fixed, because that's the dude I'm listening to.
Yeah.
That's the guy look, I'm listening to Max Scherzer. That guy is smart as it gets. He's as intense as it gets. And he's clearly as involved in the union as he is for a reason. But your very casual baseball fan might not know Max Scherzer other than, he pitched for the Nationals and won a World Series. Like, people know Mike Trout, right?
Yeah.
So when he speaks, we listen. And again, I'm on the play. I'm with the players and I want them to hold fort here. Are you kind of, are you in that camp, or do you want them to like win, but give a little bit to get there? Like, or you want them to hold and get what they're asking for?
I'm in the camp with you. I'm in the hold and get what you're asking for. I think I'm not completely happy with them, because I think they could have like really trying to bring everyone to the table sooner also. Like, I think they have a part to play in that as well. It's not just on the owners for waiting so long to do this. So I think I'm not, 100% happy with everything that's going on from either side, but I definitely would be on the side of the players to like, now is when you have some leverage, because the pressure is postponing games. Like, I know you don't get paid, and that stinks obviously for a lot of the guys who, well, I don't know, they still make a lot of money, even like the 40th man on the roster compared to everyday people. But, but it has an impact on a lot of different people, right? The clubhouse attendance, the bat boys, just name all the people who work at a stadium on any given game day or practice day or anything like that. I want it to come back. Selfishly, I want it to just get done so I can watch baseball again and, go to some games and see the Phillies back on the field. But I think at this point, I'm on, like you said, I'm on the side of the players. I want them to hold and, get what they're asking for. And maybe, like, again, the players union seem to like win a lot of the times in basketball or, football. Do they even have a union? They do, right? NFL has a players union.
Yeah. Yeah.
But especially basketball, like you've seen those negotiations and how like intense they are with the players. And like when Chris Paul steps up and says something, right? Or LeBron is very outspoken about it. Mm-hmm. I kind of wish Trout had come out again a little sooner and said something, right? To put a little extra public pressure on everyone to get something done. But they waited too long, like you said, and here we are, and it sucks.
Yeah, I just don't understand why like you lock the players out and you talk about how this is going to create opportunity and pressure to get a deal done, but you wait until 10 days before the cutoff that you created to do it, right? I mean, I hear what you're saying, it takes two to tango, but I think, the players didn't lock themselves out.
True.
They knew what the league knew what the players were asking for and waited until this close to come back to the table. And a lot of players throughout the process were saying, we're waiting at the table. Like we're here. And I think the other day, you get Manfred out there claiming broke, and that it's been 5 years of struggle. Dude, shove it. Like, are you kidding me? You $43 billion in the last 5 years. Y'all ain't broke. Like, give me a break. That's ridiculous. And it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing that's what the commissioner of Major League Baseball said about the sport. Like, stop. We're not dumb. And the Players Association is not dumb. And doing this, I just hope that the union doesn't eat itself from within, because I remember back in '93 with the strike, like guys like Lenny Dykstra were like, I'm losing $35,000 a day. Fix this. Like, so I hope that doesn't start to happen, because that's when the owners will win.
Yeah.
That's when the owners will win. When the union starts folding in on itself, the owners and Major League Baseball are going to get what they want, because that's what they're hoping for. Mm-hmm. So if the players can just hang tight, I think it's going to be fine. I've seen a lot on social media still about like the players being to blame, and they're millionaires, and we talked about this on the last show, and I talked to someone about it today, and I was trying to explain it from like just my job, like my general scope. Like for those of you that don't know, I'm a elementary school principal. And I tried to put it into the conversation of like, if I have a veteran teacher, right, who's been in the game for a while, taught 10, 15 years, they're making, upend on the salary scale, mm-hmm. right? And I get a new teacher that comes in, and they have to stay at the same level of salary for 4 years, right? But their student data looks just as good, if not better, than that 10-year teacher who's on the upper side of that scale. But they have to stay there, and they can only climb incrementally based on this piece of arbitration that we have, or pre-arbitration that we have. They only can climb so high. Right. And there's no other money for them to pull from. And that's where the Players Association and the union is trying to come in and say, if we get a dude who's, really contributing to their team, why can't they get something from a bonus pool of money right? Like, they're trying to fight for that guy who's like lower on the roster and raise that league minimum. Because here's the other piece. You talked about the 40th man on the roster. Like, some of those guys, when they go to the minors, they lose that major league salary.
Yeah, right.
So So like again, like I don't have that in my profession, but if I had a teacher who was struggling, I said, "Hey, you gotta go to the minor leagues, but your salary is gonna drop while you're down there." Like that's tough. Like that's not an easy thing to swing.
Yeah.
So that's something else they're trying to fight for is like when those guys do get a chance to come up, that the salary is a little bit bigger. It's not for guys like Bryce Harper. It's not. That's not what they're trying to do. There's some of that with like the luxury tax, but most of this is for the guy who, and again, I'm not arguing that $500,000 is a small chunk of change, but some of these dudes don't make that all year round because they're not on the major league roster all year round. So, I think, I don't think we're going to get baseball through May.
God, that sucks.
That's where I'm kind of at right now. I think that's what it's going to take for the owners to be like, crap, we're not winning this thing. We got to concede a little bit. I definitely think we're going to keep seeing it be pushed back through April. And, I think probably through May, Mother's Day, like until the owners finally say, all right, yeah, they're serious. We're not winning this one. They're going to fight us pretty hard. So I don't know where you stand on it, but that's what I'm seeing happening.
Yeah. I kind of went into a little bit of denial. I just stopped myself from thinking about how long it would go because I didn't want to believe it. I don't want to believe what I really probably think is going to happen.
Right.
So I kind of put it out of my mind to be like, nope, I think you're probably right. And B, I didn't think about it because I didn't want to. And I didn't want to be sad about
I hope
baseball.
I'm wrong, man. I hope I'm wrong.
Listen, so do I.
But I don't think I'm going to be.
Yeah, that's the part.
I really think it's going to I think we're going to miss some of May, and I think the players have to be okay with losing some salary for a little bit, and he's up there threatening, saying they're not going to get paid, and I think if they can sit back and say, you know what, in the long run this will get us where we need to be and I'll get paid, then they'll be okay. Otherwise they're going to go right back to being just the chess pieces on the board, every April through October.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to have to find a way. So, I before we move along, I do want to just touch on one more thing with baseball. This week is the 3-year anniversary of Bryce Harper signing in Philly for his 13-year deal. I still remember where I was. I was in a classroom, got a text from a buddy that Harper was ours. I ran out of the room, super excited, and called the guy from the closet of right outside the classroom because I was so pumped about it. So the question that I'm asking tonight is, we've had 2.5 years really because of the pandemic year. So, where do we stand right now on Bryce Harper? We're about 400 games into the Bryce Harper experience. And I'm just curious, was he worth, at this point, has he been worth that $25 million a year, $23 million a year contract? And why do you believe, or why do you not believe he's been worth it to this point?
I think yes is the answer. And I think the answer in my head is yes, because he went against who I thought he was coming over from Washington. Okay. I mean, when you are a Phillies fan and you watch him in Washington and you read the stories, you just think he's kind of this whiny little prima donna. When he doesn't get his way, he just kind of sulks back in, into the corner and doesn't play to his potential. And I think we've seen, and obviously last year it might be the biggest example of this, that he drug that team by their hair, right? To being 2 games out of the eventual World Series champions. And won an MVP for it, right? I don't blame how that season ended on Bryce Harper by any means. So I think not only that, but I think in other years he's played hard and he hasn't, gone into these phases where he decided he wasn't going to play hard because nobody else was playing or wasn't playing well or anything like that.
Right.
So I think the answer for me is yes, because he's shown a different side of his character than I thought was there. And I think when you're getting paid that much and you're getting paid to be the leader of a team and you're getting paid to be the best player, because you have the talent to, I think that talent should never not be displayed on the field unless of course you're injured. So going out there and like half-assing it is not, not okay when you're making that much money and you're getting, you're supposed to be the guy. He's been the guy and he's bought into this city and this team, and wanting this team to win. And he's shown that he's willing to do whatever it takes to get them there. And that's all I could ask for.
Yeah, I think you spoke perfectly to the intangibles that he brings. I mean, he really knows how to pander to Philly too. I mean, just
yeah, sure.
The outfits, the gear, everything.
Mm-hmm.
The intangibles are all we could have asked for. I mean, he hustles, plays his butt off. He's passionate, he's dynamic in every way. So you hit the nail on the head. I think, I'll go the other approach and just talk about the statistical piece because since he's been here, his NL ranks in all the major categories are top 3. He's top 3 in home runs, top 2 in doubles, top 2 in walks, top 3 in on-base percentage, slugging percentage, OPS. He's top 5 in runs scored, won an MVP.
Yeah.
I just, those are the type of numbers that you needed from him when he came here, and with the DH pretty much being a lock, coming this direction, the Phillies probably have 6 DHs on their roster right now, but it'll be good to get him off his feet.
Yes.
At least once a week, if not twice a week, not having to play the outfield, that many times a week and 6-7 times and can take a blow here and there, maybe only 4 times a week, or maybe there's a series where he just DHs, where Girardi gets him entirely off of his feet. I'll be curious to see how Girardi uses that, but there are some people, Philly fans and not Philly fans, that would argue he hasn't gotten them to the playoffs yet. There is no more team sport that you talked about. I mean, he drugged them through the doldrums of August and September. There was not much he could have done outside of cloned himself to hit behind him and probably in front of him and lead off on top of it. And they didn't get performances from the guys they needed performances from.
No.
Didi was terrible. JT was not good.
Yep.
They didn't have a guy hitting leadoff all year. Like Reese got hurt. He got hot and then got hurt and was done for the year. They lost Eflin. That killed him. The bullpen was still a disaster, at times, not all the time, but at times it was still a disaster. Girardi was not good.
Yeah.
Nola was brutal. There were a lot of things that did not go right for them in this season. And, we'll see what happens when the lockout ends and what they do to improve this team to build more around Bryce Harper. But them not getting to the playoffs had very little, nothing to do with, absolutely zilch in regards to Bryce Harper.
He won his MVP in half a season.
Yes.
Like he was hurt the first half of the season.
He was hurt for like 2.5 weeks. He got hit in the face with a fastball.
He I don't know if people realize that. Like he won an MVP in half a season. That's how unbelievable he played in the second half of the year while no one else around him was playing well.
No. And they stopped pitching to him for a 2-week stretch. The teams were just like, all right, forget it. We're not going to throw you anything. Because he was that good. And here's the thing, Regz. Bryce Harper's just hitting his prime. He's just now 28 years old. So this is why I need baseball so badly, because we've already lost out on a full season of Bryce Harper because of the stupid pandemic. And now we're going to lose another year of Bryce Harper because of this lockout.
And Mike Trout was hurt all last year.
Yeah. I need baseball because I need prime Bryce Harper.
Yeah.
I need prime Bryce Harper. It needs to happen now because I need that superstar in my life. So, we're gonna jump to another superstar, and man, he's good. Like Regz, he's good.
So we had this conversation over text, because we were talking about what we wanted to talk about, and we started throwing ideas back and forth. This is how we come up, how Azzy comes up with things to for what we're going to talk about that night. It usually either starts with me texting him about something, or he'll shoot me a text to be like, what do you think about this? And those stem into topics that we're going to talk about for the podcast. So over the weekend, it came up, what do you, right? What do you think about Harden so far? And me, not wanting to be off brand, said, listen, it looks exactly how we would want it to look, but they also just played two of the worst teams in like the whole NBA. So was it a good thing that they played those teams first? Yes. Did it allow them to like build a little bit of chemistry and like get a sense of where everyone is going to be? Yes. Do I think it shows what this will be like in the playoffs or against good teams? No. And this will be something that we obviously get to shortly, but I'm very happy how the chemistry looks between James and Embiid. I think that everything that we wanted that to be, it has the potential to be. There's nothing that we saw to go against that. I think the thing was very excited about is how willing Maxey was to take those swing passes and just fly at the rim. Because I think the thing that Harden, that you might get into when you're watching Harden, if you are on the court with him, is all those step backs, right? Like you saw it in some of the practice videos, like everyone's joking around, practicing these crazy step backs, But as a young player like Tyree, how could you not be influenced by that, right? It's James Harden. Mm-hmm. So I've loved how aggressive Maxey has been when he catches those swing passes, and Harden, and we're seeing why Harden is known as one of the all-time greatest passers we've ever seen in our whole life, right? So I've loved how that has looked. I love that now Embiid is getting the ball where and when he should all the time. Like he doesn't have to worry about if he's going to get the ball in the right spot or at the right time. Harden knows exactly when to get him the ball at exactly the right time, and will do it over and over again. Do I think Harden's going to shoot this well all the time for the rest of the season? No. Do I think that, or am I hopeful that when he is off on certain nights, he just feeds the big fella and just lives off, catch and shoot threes because Embiid's going to draw that much attention? I certainly am hopeful. So I think we saw all the things we wanted to see. I'm excited to see it against better defensive teams, to really see how it looks. And then obviously the playoffs are their own beast. But if you're giving me a scale of like not happy to happy, I'm very much on the happy side.
Awesome. I love hearing that. I'm gonna push back on a couple of things, Regz, because I love you. The first one being, you said two of the worst teams. The Knicks are awful.
Yes.
I mean, like they're the same team as last year, but they're just not good this year.
Julius Randle decided he got paid and didn't want to play anymore.
Yeah, I mean, dude, his shot is so weird looking.
Yeah, it is.
That's a whole nother
It's been that way since
conversation.
Kentucky.
But and look, I'm not saying Minnesota's a bunch of world beaters, but they're like in the playoff conversation in the West. They're like the 6 or 7 seed right now. That's not a bad team, especially not a bad team on the road. Like you come off the break, it's your first game together, and they torched them. Like
weren't they on a back-to-back though, Minnesota?
Were they?
Yeah,
maybe they were.
I think they were on a back-to-back.
That's fair. Okay, that's fair. But it's not a bad team. Like there's some good players on that roster. Like Karl Anthony Towns is a good player. D'Angelo Russell's a decent player.
Joel eats Cat's dinner. Like, oh my God, Cat can
he and
do
Andre
nothing
Drummond
against that guy.
Yeah, they just destroy him.
Yeah.
You mentioned a couple of other things that like you talked about Joel playing really well off of him right now. Passes from James Harden, Joel is shooting 81%.
Yeah.
You're right. He's not the only one benefiting from it. Like dudes are wide open. Like you talked about the passing, and they said it after the game. Like I don't know that I've ever felt so wide open, or like that pass caught me off guard. Like you can see Matisse Thybulle actually confused when he catches some of James Harden's passes. like almost caught, like leaning backward, catching the ball because he's not expecting it.
Right.
And I think, we haven't seen it quite yet for him. You mentioned Maxey, and I just think the impact that he's made on Tyrese Maxey is something that we'll never be able to truly understand. But I think a couple more weeks with Matisse Thybulle, and we're going to see 10 to 12 points a game from Thybulle just off of cuts. Because he's a really good cutter.
Yeah.
Like, Thybulle can get to the basket cutting and getting behind guys because he's so athletic. But he never had a guy that could find him the way that Harden could. Yeah, Simmons is fine in transition, but was never a half court point guard. And that it is unbelievable watching James Harden in the half court and see what he's able to do and what he's capable to do. I just the playing teams argument, like, I'm gonna go back to before James Harden for a second, because there's stuff to be talked about here. Before they got James Harden, they beat Brooklyn with Harden and Durant. They beat Chicago 3 times. They beat Denver without Joe. They beat Memphis without Joe. They beat Boston twice. They beat Golden State on the road. They beat Miami. And they beat Milwaukee. All of that without James Harden. Now, if we're going to say, like, let's see how they do when they play these better teams, then I think it's only fair to revisit the fact that they beat some of these better teams without him. And look, Andre Drummond and Steph Curry, that, like, right? Like, that's what we're talking the difference right now.
Yeah. And I think that's fair. I think the reason I want to see it is because it's a little bit different basketball wise when you're just feeding the big man and everyone sort of just converges on him, right? And then he's able to kind of distribute from there. When now the offense is going to be James Harden, Joel Embiid, pick and rolls, right? That is what this offense is going to live off of for the rest of time.
Sure.
So pick and rolls require a certain amount of timing, of chemistry, synergy to work and be effective. So when you're playing against quote unquote lesser teams who maybe have worse defenses,
sure,
more things on a pick and roll are going to be open because the defense is not doing what they're supposed to do. They're missing assignments. They're not rotating correctly, all those things.
Sure.
I think the reason I want to see it is more from like that pure basketball standpoint, that when you have a guy like Joel who can score over double teams and triple teams and distribute enough, to find open guys, that's great. But when you have now an offense that relies on something like that is timing based, that is chemistry based, when those swing passes come around, right? Guys have to be ready to do the right thing when they catch the ball, right? Sure. They have to be ready to make the right pass or shoot or drive. And all that's different now because of what you said. They're not used to getting these types of passes, right? They're not used to being ready for these types of distributions. And you never truly see what that looks like until you play a team that rotates correctly, who switches properly, who covers pick and rolls the right way. That's when you really learn, like, if this thing is going to be sustainable. I think they're going to get their points and they're going to do what they have to do. I think we have to take into consideration that we have to see their defense against better teams. Because I think that's still a pretty big concern that most people have about this team, is that their defense just still isn't great. But I think that's why I want to see it against better teams from both an offense and defensive standpoint.
And that's all very fair. Clearly, we're in the honeymoon period too, right?
Sure.
I mean, right now James Harden is playing out of his mind.
Yes.
He's happy. He loves where he's at.
Yep.
He loves playing with Tyrese Maxey. He loves playing with Joe. So, we're in that honeymoon phase, and it's not all going to be sunshine and rainbows,
right?
Over the next 2 months. But I think there's definitely something to be said for the immediate synergy that they have and the immediate connection that they have.
Sure.
It'll grow, and I think, we'll see some bumps when they do play some better teams. We're going to talk about their schedule here in a minute, but one thing that I've noticed, and that I think is something to kind of highlight is what's going to be really difficult for teams to do is go on sustained runs that puts the Sixers out of a game because, and this from playing the game, momentum's everything. And what kills momentum? Whistle blows. And goodness gracious, do these two get to the line at a high rate. And here's the thing, it's because you can't guard either one of them. Like Joe is just such a freak in terms of what he's able to do in the post. He can get you to make contact with him in so many ways because he's just so agile and strong.
Yeah.
And Harden, watching him more and more, I mean, he just gets right into your body. Like, he's not afraid to put the ball into you because you're not going to take it from him. You're going to end up hitting him or grabbing him. So it's going to be like last night against the Knicks. Like, there were a couple times where it felt like the Knicks were going to pull away, but then all of a sudden James Harden's at the line. And the momentum slows, and the Sixers will cut it to like 11.
Yep.
Then they'll cut it to 9. And it's back to 14. But wait, he's back at the line again. Like, he's so smart, and he knows like how to kill those runs. By killing momentum. It's just something small that I've noticed about them. Like, people are going to be annoyed by it, and that's fine. But no one seemed to care last year when Ben was getting fouled 20 times a game and missing them. It's only because these two make them.
Yeah, well,
that's why people care so much.
That's what I was going to say. It's because they make them. Because Embiid shoots 75%, not 30% like Simmons did.
Yeah. I mean, he's freaking 7'2", and he shoots 80% from the line. Like, it's crazy. I mean, when he misses, it surprises you.
Yeah.
And that's just not normal for a dude that size. And I mean, Harden's obviously always been a really good free throw shooter.
One of the greatest free throw shooters
Maxey
we've ever
continues to get better. So, the more Maxey goes to the rim, like you said, he's going to be at the line a ton more. So, and real quickly, before we talk about their schedule, who the hell is Jason McIntyre?
I don't know. You sent me this, and I never heard of him before, and will never need to hear about him ever again.
I mean, wait a second. Can I tell you something?
Yes.
Like, so I did a little research on this dude after seeing that he said that Joe and James Harden, one, well, they can't play together, and two, they're not a top 5 duo in the East, not in the NBA, in the East. I was like, who's this moron? And I need to know more about him all at one time. So I went and I looked up a couple more things, and one thing that stuck out to me was Joel Embiid's not an MVP candidate because he trolls people. That's why he's not an MVP. That he literally came out of his mouth. That's why he's not an MVP candidate, because he trolls people.
On Twitter or on television?
Twitter.
Jesus.
Twitter. I repeat, who the hell is Jason McIntyre, and why is he clogging up my Twitter feed?
Does he write for somebody? Is he a writer?
I don't know.
Who is he?
I don't know. I know there was a good friend of mine who truly wanted. He could not wait to hear this segment. So Joe, shout out to you, man. Regz, can you name even 3 duos in the East that are just by existence better than James Harden and Joel Embiid? I can think of one, and
KD
that's even
and
arguable.
Kyrie Irving.
Right.
I mean, Giannis Middleton, but that's just because Giannis is so effing good.
Right.
Giannis might carry that by himself. That just might be a Giannis is better than Joel and Harden.
Right, because the duo is not better.
No.
Middleton's a good player, he's a fine player, but we're talking 2 top 15 players. Is Middleton top 15? Not in my eyes.
I'm really trying to think of another
one. If he's not, he's right outside. Don't get me wrong.
No, I'm trying to think of another one. It's not Boston. It's
no,
not,
I mean
it's
Tatum
not
and and Brown are okay, but they're not
no. It's not Chicago. It's not
Levine, DeRozan, again, good.
Yeah, nope. I can't think of one.
This guy said they're 5. And I mean, he lists them, but I tuned him out after he
Did he actually list them? I didn't hear him list them.
Yeah, he listed who he said was better. I'm sorry, I'll have to go back and
We're gonna have to find that to
I I still have it.
I want to
because
see.
I saved it. I saved it for when, things start going in
Yeah.
the right direction for the Sixers and I can just tweet at this jabroni.
I want to see who he said.
Yeah,
We'll find it.
yeah, we'll find it. We'll have to look at it and pull it back up. I should have written it down before we started.
We'll
but
find it and put it on Twitter. We'll put our thoughts
mean-
about.
I mean, like, this guy has now reached the pantheons of Brandon Nimmo. Like, this guy
In one sentence.
has completely become not just to hate the face, but hate the person, like, and the mentality, and just the, hate the person strong. I don't know him. He's probably a really nice guy. I take that back, but he's an idiot. Like, that's the dumbest.
You can hate his television personality. Let's go.
Yeah,
with that.
the television personality. Like, come on, man. Like, if you're trying to get attention of a fan base, I know Philly's the one because we're going to get super defensive. But, like, at least be semi-intelligent about the way you come at us, because that's just ridiculous. To call us bozos because we're excited about having a top 75 player in the game of all time, and then Joel Embiid, who's the MVP of the league, on the same roster, we're bozos because we're excited about that. Get out of here, man.
This is why I can't watch these shows.
I mean, I was sitting in my car when I saw it.
That was more of a general statement. Like, that's why those stupid, like, first take shows are so bad.
Yeah,
they're so dumb.
Jason, again, I'm sure you're actually a really good person, and I'm sure you were raised really well. But, like, come on, man. Don't be a moron. Don't be a moron.
The great part is, I bet if you got him, like, over a beer or two, he would say, "Oh, I don't believe that. You just got to do what you got to do."
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Clicks.
Like, right, exactly.
I need clicks.
I don't really believe that, guys. You just got to, right? You got to have a take, and that's what it is.
And that's fine. And I respect the fact that everybody's got to work for a living, right? But, like, I mean,
you don't have to. You don't have to be an idiot for a living. Nobody said
like,
you had to do
who
that.
Are you? No, who are we talking? Get out of here, Brandon Nimmo wannabe.
Yeah, really stupid.
All right, real quickly, their schedule coming up, and then we're gonna jump into a fixated and get out of here. They got back to back right off the bat here. The Cavs and the Heat, home away.
Yeah, their May schedule is crazy.
Yeah,
or March schedule. Excuse me.
This run through March is insane. So Cavs Heat back to back, then the Bulls on Monday, and then they're off till Thursday for the long-awaited return of. Oh no, wait, never mind. He won't be there. Then they get a breather back to back. The Magic on the road come home to face the Nuggets. So that'll be a tough game.
Mm-hmm.
Away against the Cavs, and then home for Mavs Raptors.
Okay.
Then Heat at home, so 3 game stretch at home. And then they go out west, and you ready for this? Lakers, Clippers, Suns.
Yeah, it's tough.
And then Bucks, Pistons to wrap up the month. So I mean let's just start with this.
Suns, Bucks. That's a tough little 1-2.
I mean, Clippers. I mean, the Clippers aren't great.
Yeah,
so,
I was about to say.
Suns, Bucks. Yep. But they come home for the Bucks.
Okay, but still, that's like 2
coming
tough
off
games.
a West Coast trip too. And it's not like they have 2 or 3 days. It's basically they play in Phoenix on the 27th, come home, and it's a 6:00 game.
Wow, you lose hours and then play the next day.
Yep,
Yeah,
and then
tough.
they come home, have the day off, and play the Bucks on Tuesday.
Okay.
All right, so let's just focus on these next 4. Cavs, Heat, Cavs at home, Heat on the road, Bulls at home, Nets at home. I got 3-1. I think they lose to Miami.
Yeah, I was going to say Miami's a loss. I was going to say Chicago, probably a win.
Yeah, Joe just doesn't lose to Chicago.
Durant's not playing, right? So the Nets don't have Durant, do they?
Actually, no. He's supposed to be back tonight.
Right.
So he's playing. Yeah.
They'll lose that game. They got nobody who can guard him. And Kyrie can play because it's an away game.
Yeah, I'm anxious to see if they do try Matisse on Durant or if they'd use him on Kyrie.
I mean, I think Maxey is good enough to run around with ones, like with point guards like Kyrie. You have to put Thibault on Durant. There's no one else. Like, there's nobody else you can put on him.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see how that goes. But at the same time, we can say, look, like no one can guard Durant, but no one can guard Joe
No,
on that
fair.
roster.
Fair.
And no one can guard Harden on that roster.
I'm going to say 2-2.
Okay. I have 3-1. I think that game, I think that Philly stadium, that Philly crowd's going to be locked in for that Nets game. So I'm sticking 3-1.
I would say
I just think the Heat's going to be tough for them.
The Heat are going to be tough.
Yeah.
Chicago should be a win.
Yeah.
Again, they have nobody who can guard Joel.
No. And honestly,
what's the fourth game? Why am I forgetting the fourth game?
Cavs.
Oh, thank you. Okay. The Cavs should be a win.
And that's at home.
Yeah. Again, I know the Cavs are a nice story and they're playing pretty well, but that should be a win.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, I got a quick fixated if you're down.
Always.
I'm gonna jump back to what we were talking about before, and just that, you know, we've hit the the 3-year anniversary of Bryce Harper, and I think, you know, the fixated tonight is just on that feeling of having a superstar play for your team. And I kind of go back to, we didn't have that as kids until Jim Thome came. Like, we didn't have superstars in Philadelphia. I think probably you'd argue the closest before Thome came, AI.
Yeah.
Like that, yeah. AI is probably, you know, about right. But like, there wasn't really, he was ours, right? Like we drafted him. He didn't choose us.
Yeah, right.
Now, if you were to ask him now, he would a million times say he would choose us. But there's a different feeling when a guy chooses to come to your city versus, you know, they're just drafted and really don't have a choice to play for your city. And you know, superstars, there are only so many generational guys, right? Like, you know, James Harden is considered a top 75 basketball player of all time. He wanted to come to Philly. He's been saying that for a few years. I mean, it's basically bordering on tampering. So that feeling of having a guy that wants to come play for the city that you're so passionate about is such a cool experience, because we're a city that gets lambasted for how hard we are on our athletes, and that we don't show them any love, and that, you know, they want to leave. And I mean, JJ Redick said last night after he got the standing ovation that the best 2 years of his career were playing in Philadelphia. It's a guy who's played a lot of places. Like, he's been in a lot of cities in that league. And no, he's not a superstar, but I think it speaks to, you know, the fan base and what they can mean to a player when they fall in love with that player. And, you know, Bryce Harper's the perfect example. We booed that guy up and down when he was in Nashville. Oh my God. And we booed him because we respected the hell out of him. The guy was a player. We knew that. He's arguably next to Joel Embiid, the most beloved athlete in the city of Philadelphia.
Oh yeah.
I mean, Joe's untouchable, right?
Yeah.
Like, Joe is untouchable. But Bryce Harper is, because he chose us. Like, he chose us. And having superstars choose you is special. And there's not many words for it. We have two that chose us. And I do hope we get one in football and free agency. There aren't too many out there, but there's one or two that I can think of that if they would choose to come to us, I'd be really happy about that. But I think what I'm fixated on tonight is just, you know, as a fan, when you get the guy that you don't feel like you'll ever be able to touch with a 10-foot pole, and you're the city, you're the team, you're the organization that they choose to go to, and then all they do is love on you, no matter how hard you are on them. Bryce eats it up. You know, we've booed them numerous times since he's been here, and he eats it up. He wants it. He wants to be held accountable. So having superstars that want to be here, want to play for you, want to win for you, and will do everything they can to do just that is really special. And I think last night, again, Joe didn't choose us, but last night Joel Embiid dove for a ball in the third quarter of a regular season game that's not going to mean anything at the end of the day. but dove for a ball to keep it in bounds. And he did that because he loves this city so much. So, we have some really special guys in this city, some special talents in this city. And, we're lucky to be able to watch generational talents like him, like Harden, like Bryce. And I'm sure there are guys on the Eagles that, I'm not mentioning who Jason Kelsey, like guys like that who are superstars in their sport and what they do. And they do it because they love this city. So whether they chose us or they just got stuck with us, we love them. And we're appreciative to be able to watch superstars every night in such a special place. So that's where I was fixated tonight. I told Regz before we started the show I didn't have anything. I had no idea what I was going to talk about. And then once we started talking about Bryce, it kind of hit me.
It was good. I love it. So now I'm really going to put you on the spot because now that you did the intro, you have to do the outro.
Oh, no. I wasn't prepared for
I know.
this.
This is why I had to do it.
Oh, no, and my light went out. Oh, no. It's all happening at once. See, the light goes out. So do I still have to do it?
Yes, you do.
Oh, no.
Even more so now.
To charge my light this week, too. All right, so guys, thank you so much for listening tonight. I want to thank Regz for being here with me. I know, we love doing this hopefully as much as you love listening to it. Make sure you follow us. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel, Birdies and Beer YouTube channel. Subscribe to us and wherever your podcasts needs are met. We're probably there. We're definitely there.
We are there.
Give us a follow on Twitter, both Birdies and Beer podcast platform, Twitter handle, and mine, Mike Drop 5. And Regz, what is yours, by the way? I don't think you ever advertise yours.
I don't because nobody cares, but it's at Big Regz 32. Follow B&B Podcast and follow Phixated Pod. Don't follow me. No one cares.
I care.
No, I want you to follow the other things so we can make this a living. We can.
And make sure you follow the Phixated Facebook page. There's some really good stuff going on there. I'm going to get a couple more things. And yes, I promise I'll do a basement tour here soon. But thanks again, guys, for listening to another episode of the Phixated Podcast. We love you and we appreciate you hanging out with us. Regz, thanks a lot, man. It was a good one. And we'll talk to you guys soon. Take care, everybody.
Thank you, buddy. Have a good night, everyone.
To right field, way up there, and way out of here! The Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champions. Eagles fans everywhere, this is for you.
The 0-2 pitch, swing and a miss, struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball.